We're ready to go. Adam Butler is here. Major Chris Reed is here. How are you gentlemen today?
Glad to be here, JT.
Always a privilege.
Man, who's that character you got sitting over there beside you?
Alligator Man.
Man, they knew him before when we walked in the door.
The Stump.
Herman said, "Hey, that's the Alligator Man right there."
What's going on, Ricky Flint?
Man, it's all good. It's time to get prepared.
I figured so, because that's why you're here. I'm going to talk to you about
Gator season.
right around the corner, and we got that. We're coming up with you. But first, Adam, you get to the turkey world. You turkey world guys, I wasn't going to call you turkeys. I said you turkey world guys. Y'all had a really neat thing with the new harvest reporting deal. Really cool shotgun from Dad's Super Pawn in Gulfport. Right. And tell us about that.
Well, just wanted to announce the winner on the air. You know, the foundation who sponsors the show here, our Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, also sponsored a really nice shotgun Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 for the rollout of our Game Check system. So if you signed up for the contest and liked the Facebook page, and if you reported a turkey, you actually got a second entry. So if you did all of those things to help us advertise Game Check, you got entered into a contest, and Mr. Benjamin Roberts of Clark County is the winner of the Benelli Super Black Eagle 3. So just wanted to say that over the air, and we appreciate the foundation being willing to help get the word out for the turkey harvest reporting system that we just wrapped up. So there you go. Well, congratulations, Mr. Roberts.
That's pretty cool out there, no doubt about it. And Major Reed, before we go any further, I want to sure you have a nice little message you'd like to tell everybody that's going to be out on the water upcoming weekend because of Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you and your staff and all the sworn officers will be out in full force this weekend.
We will. We'll be out. It's crazy to think that it's, that time of year again. It seems like we say that every
summertime
month. Yeah, and it's here
summertime
for sure. We'll be out working to ensure safety out there, boating safety, boating regulations. Get your boat registered before you take it out on the water and you're checked and you say, well, I forgot to check my boat registration. Get that stuff. Get all your safety equipment lined up. Go through a little self-check before you go out there. Another thing you need to pay attention to is some of these areas may be dealing with some flood water. And so general access, as in the past, may be restricted. May not be a good idea to go there. We still have that in effect along the tributaries, along the Oxbow Lakes connected to the Mississippi River. If you're out there on those bodies of water, Eagle Lake, I would not advise going to for recreational purposes. We had to do a bunch of rescues this weekend.
Yeah, it's closed.
So plan on that. Don't be upset when you get there and there's no way to get in the lake. Don't call us, upset about it. That's out of our hands. That's Mother Nature's stuff. But be aware of that. Anytime that people are boating and you're dealing with flood water, it just changes the dynamic. It may look like it's perfectly boatable, if you will, all the way across, but you may get up in areas that are shallow, that are flooded. There'll be stumps, obstructions under the water that cause, somebody some harm if they fall off a tube, or they could tear your boat up.
And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Ross Barnett Reservoir that is low because of the drawdown. So it's
be aware of the body
place.
of water you're going to.
Yeah,
to
Ross
check.
Barnett and the Pearl River, Peleachi Bay is a very dangerous place with the current water conditions if you're not paying good attention.
And also, if you're on the Ross, make sure you got a trash can that says trash on it.
Trash.
If not, you're going to get in trouble. All right, folks, just do this. Y'all use common sense this weekend. Common sense is not that common anymore, but use common sense when you get on the water.
Get you a designated driver for your boat, for your vehicle.
Have fun. Have fun. Get somebody can play the role.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy. We've got all weekend. One person do it one day, another person do it the next, another person do it the next. And have fun. All right, let's get into it, Ricky Flint. Alligator permit applications. When are y'all going to start taking them?
We will start taking applications at 10 a.m., May 31st. That's a Friday. Mm-hmm. It's very simple. If you are interested in alligator hunting, or you have family members and friends that are interested in alligator hunting, the only way for you to get a permit is to put in an application so that you may be drawn. It's a free application. It does cost $2.34 for the electronic processing fee because you will need a credit card or debit card to get it done. We recommend everybody use the online process. It will be open for 7 days.
How many?
7 days. It will close at 10 a.m. on June the 6th. And interested hunters can go online. We'll have it up on our webpage. In fact, you can go there now and find the Alligator application banner. You can read all the information that you need to know, has all the frequently asked questions, things that you need to be prepared for in order to make that application, because there are some prerequisites. Number one, you must be a resident of the state. You must be at least 16 years of age, and you must have one of the prerequisite licenses valid at the time of application, such as a sportsman's license, all-game hunting license, a Mississippi small game fishing license. If you are an exempt hunter, like you're over 65 or you are a disabled exempt hunter, you still will have to have one of those exempt privileges on file in order to make application. Those are only $5. We do allow all of our lifetime license hunters that whether they live in the state or not, if they've moved away, then they are eligible for these applications. There are 7 alligator hunting zones in the state. We are now hunting all the public waters of the state of Mississippi. This year we have increased the number of permits from 930 to 960, slight increase, and so we're trying to extend just a little bit more opportunity where we see that the public waters can withstand it.
How much is it going to cost this year to do the application?
$2.34.
What a bargain.
And then the process is you must provide an email address with your application. You will select one zone of your choice. You can apply in only one of the 7 zones. So if you get drawn, it'll be the zone that you desire to hunt in. And then when the drawing takes place on June the 12th, I think I've got it listed as. Let me make sure. Yeah, June the 12th. Drawing will take place by a third-party entity outside of the agency. They will then send out an email notification to each of the winners, and that email will have a link that they can access to be able to go right then and buy their alligator hunting permit. It'll cost them $200 plus a $25 alligator hunting license, and they will have 48 hours to complete that process. At the end of 48 hours, that will shut down, and any remaining permits in each of those 7 zones will be submitted for another drawing that will occur on June 24th. And then we'll do that same thing. The email notifications will go out. They'll have 48 hours to do it, and hopefully we will have sold all the permits. We actually sold all but 3 of the 930 permits last year with this new change in the process, and it worked very well.
Now, I can apply in each zone, right?
Nope. One zone.
Just one application?
One zone and with your choice.
Okay. So it's only once. You can't apply more than that. Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Will we have more tags this year, or is it going to go up?
Got 30 more tags this year than we had last year, and the years previous we're up to 960. We added 10 additional permits to the Pearl River Ross Barnett zone, 10 permits to the Southwest zone, and 10 more permits to the West Central.
Well, it's hard to believe it's that time of year again. And the fee again, if to apply, is $2 and what?
$2.34.
And then it'll go up to $225 if you're selected.
Right. You'll need to be prepared to pay for your permit by June 12th when the drawing takes place.
And I'm sure you've been asked the question 100 times, what's the $200 for? That's what the fee's been set to do this if you want to go hunt alligators in the state of Mississippi.
Right. And those benefits of revenue from the alligator program benefit the entire agency as well as the alligator program. It's about $230,000 annually that the agency is receiving off these permits.
But you also have to remember this too. Reed's guys are going to be out and got to be out in force all night long during alligator season.
It is a tremendous volume of resources that we utilize during that weekend or that 10-day period.
No
add
doubt.
in dove season opening up on the Sunday following. So,
No doubt about it. All right, there you go. Thank you, Ricky Flint. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Hang around if you'd like. We're going to do Pond Management 3 coming up next. Hang on. We're doing a little bit more on Pond Management 3 with Larry Bull. Larry, obviously, before we get into ponds today, it's just heartbreaking to see what's happening up at Eagle Lake right there. With the flooding, it's historic flooding. I mean, this is stuff we haven't seen. I guess the duration of it is what we've seen. Just your thoughts on that about Eagle Lake, Chotard, all that. It's going to be a little bit different after the water subsides, isn't it?
Well, it could be, JT. We are a little concerned that Asian carp are going to make their way into Eagle Lake. We saw in 2011 quite a few Asian carp invade some of those delta lakes. Wolf Lake comes to mind. Eagle Lake's we've had small numbers of the Asian carp in Eagle Lake, but we do think there's going to be quite a few more in the lake after this flooding.
Mm-hmm. But you said it's going to be difficult for them to reproduce in that lake, so that hopefully it won't be a long-term issue and something that gets even worse as time goes on.
That's correct. They require big rivers, flowing water to reproduce, so they will not reproduce in Eagle Lake once the water comes back down. However, they have a lifespan of 8 to 10 years, so we'll probably have them in there for quite a while.
Well, I know that's not what they wanted to hear, but folks, there's just nothing you can do about this when you get this kind of flooded and like that. And then I think they're saying maybe going to crest. Are they saying today for the Mississippi? Maybe today?
Yeah, around this time. But, I mean, then you got weeks and weeks of time before the backwater can go down,
And that's what's happening, isn't it, Larry? Is the backwater's coming up on the other side. It's just there's nowhere for it to go. We got so much water, there's just nowhere for any of it to go.
Right, that's correct. That's right.
And so it's actually they're saying it's going to equalize. Now, what does that mean? They're talking about Eagle Lake equalizing with the backwater.
The level on both sides of the whole area will be just level. It'll be the same elevation.
So
same water level.
Everything's flooding. You can't tell where Eagle Lake is and begins or doesn't end. So.
Right. I know
It's
the
a
boat
big
ramp's
water.
underwater right now, and even the parking lot at Eagle Lake, the public use areas are underwater.
That's unbelievable.
It's a bad deal. And, the thing about it is you look out 3 months from now, and deer seasons are 4 months, however long. Not very long. The deer season's
Don't
fixing
say
to-
that. It's just now summer.
I know,
Is
but
it really
deer
that-
season means it's fall. Like, I'm not a big
College football season.
If I had to pick a season, it wouldn't be summer.
I understand.
It's hot.
I
I have red
understand.
hair. I burn easy.
I understand, but just let us have a little summer, would you? We didn't get any spring, and what
Okay.
spring we got was rain, so it immediately went to summer. But anyway, I know time goes too fast, Chris Reed. That's
Bam,
the
bam,
point
bam.
I'm getting at.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Pond management, and I know we've been talking to you about it for a while, but this is important times as people are getting out on the ponds and doing some different things like that. And we've learned about how to build a pond. We've learned about all the different things you do about fertilizing a pond and doing some different things like that. So we'll continue with it this week. And plants in a pond. I guess there's some good plants you want and some that you don't want, right? I mean, everybody wants a little cover in there, right?
Right. Today I wanted to kind of talk about some of the common questions that we get from pond owners, and aquatic plants is a number one topic, I think. And should you have plants in your pond or not? They provide great habitat, and if you can maintain about 10 to 15% of the pond area in aquatic plants, that's really beneficial to your fish populations. Of course, the problem becomes if they're in the area where you like to fish, particularly if it's a bank fishing area, they can be a nuisance. So, it's good to have plants, but you may want to try to manage those plants and not let them get out of hand.
Okay. How do you do that? Obviously, you got to spray, huh?
Well, there are chemicals available, herbicides available to kill plants. You also can do, but it's important if you choose to use herbicides, the number one thing you've got to do is identify the plant, correctly identify the plant so that you can match the correct herbicide with the plant. There's, quite a few different herbicides that are labeled for aquatic use, and you want to make sure you have one that's labeled for aquatic use. and also follow the label directions. And we can help you identify the plants in your pond. Your county extension agent can help you do that. Take a sample to their office, and they can help you get the plant identified. But that's the number one thing you need to do. Some other methods that you can use is mechanical removal of plants. So if you see a problem developing and you jump on it pretty quick, you might be able to just rake it out of your pond. Just keep, and also you have biological control, the grass carp that will eat some of the types of plants that show up in your pond. They're primarily going to be effective on submerged plants, the plants that grow under the water. But a lot of, I guess, and then if you can do kind of a mixed type of control, whether you use some grass carp and maybe use some herbicides in selected areas, you can go that route too.
Okay. And it's something you need to take and don't let get out of hand, because if you do and you don't control it, anything can get out of hand, especially in a pond like that, right?
That's correct. And then it gets more expensive to control it and bring your pond back to where you want it. So it's best to stay on top of it or get on top of it early. That's correct.
All right, let's talk about feeding fish. What fish benefit from being fed?
Well, primarily your brim or your catfish will benefit from being fed. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that you necessarily have to do, but it can be a lot of fun. Kids really enjoy feeding your fish. Now you can do it by hand, where you actually throw the feed out yourself, or of course you can have automatic feeders set up to go off at certain times of the day. We recommend that you only feed during the growing season, which would be primarily April through September or so. Don't feed more than the fish are going to eat in 5 or 10 minutes. You don't want to have a lot of excess feed in the water that's going to raise the nutrients, or can cause water quality problems. Plus, you're just wasting your money. And the only downside to feeding is if you do have grass carp in your pond, grass carp will also take that floating feed too. So
they learn how to eat it, huh?
Yes, and you don't want them to eat the food. You want them to eat the plants.
Right.
Obviously.
So let's talk about maintenance for a pond owner, and let's get started with the dam. Obviously, that's the most important part of the pond, right?
It sure is. And we recommend that everybody keep a really good grass cover on the pond, on the dam itself, and you want to keep it mowed. You don't want to allow trees or woody shrubs to grow on the dam. It's important that the pond owner gets out during the dry season. This is the time you're going to see this, but check the dam for seeps on the back side. And that's obviously going to be easier to do when it's dry. And also, we suggest that if they have a water control structure, some kind of valve that they can open and close that annually, just to keep it working.
So I guess the question, I can't resist, what do you do if you got a seep on the back side of your dam?
Well, you hope that it's not too bad. You want to monitor that. And as long as you're not seeing, if it's clear water that's seeping through, that's a good thing. But if you have water that's muddy that's seeping through, that means it's taking material out of your dam. In other words, it's eroding the soil that's in the dam. So that's a bad thing. There are some products, one thing called bentonite, that can be used if you can try to determine on the pond side, the water side of your dam, where that is. You may have to draw the water down, but you can put bentonite in the areas where you think it's seeping through, and it'll kind of act as a plug. Some people call that driller's mud, mm-hmm. But it's a kind of material that'll soak up water and expand and fill up holes.
That's interesting. And we're going to talk about drawing down the pond and some other things that we can do when it comes to pond management. We'll talk about that when we come back. Also, on the way for you as well, we've got the Gateway Getaway that we're going to talk about as well with you. And where you can go, brought to you by Gateway Tire and Services Center. Philip said real quick, what plants should you avoid?
What plants should you avoid? Well, a lot of people have problems with filamentous algae. It's probably not the best kind of plant to have in your pond, although I can't think of any of the invasives. You wouldn't want to introduce water hyacinth or the giant salvinia or those kind of plants in your pond. But generally, your native plants aren't going to cause. If they're in a small amount, they're not going to cause a problem.
Got an interesting question from a teacher. I'll let you think about this. My school has a couple of ponds that don't typically get used. Can you recommend any type of research or activity do you think our students can do with these ponds? We'll talk about that when we come back. Good question. The guy asked about school, and maybe there's some kind of research they could do on some ponds there. I'll let you kind of marinate on that over the break there, Larry Bull. What you got?
Right. Thank you, JT. I'd suggest fishing in the pond. And in conjunction with that, you obviously can learn fish identification, measure the lengths of the fish that you catch, and you can plot those lengths out by species and look at what we call a length frequency distribution. You can also seine the pond and also do fish ID. You may also catch some invertebrates or tadpoles in the pond if they're available, and also just go around if there's collect invertebrates, assuming there's some kind of organic matter like leaves and that kind of thing. Pull that material out of the bottom around the edge and look for invertebrates, aquatic insects or crawfish and those kinds of things. And you can do a lot of identification with looking at those different animals.
Someone said you may have covered this all morning. What size should you let your grass carp get before you need to swap them out with younger fish?
Oh, well, you want to stock them I'd recommend you stock them at 10 to 12 inches, assuming you're stocking those fish on top of an existing fish population. That way the bass won't eat them up when you stock them. When they get 15 pounds or so, it's probably time to stock some more. Of course, some fish are going to die every year, but I would say once they get 15 to 20 pounds, I'd restock with smaller fish.
Okay. And I didn't know. Okay, maybe there's 3. I didn't know they had a wave pool in Collins too. But there you go. Thank you very much. So, people letting us know. Let's go to the pond drawdown. What is a pond drawdown, and why should a pond owner do that?
Okay, well, a pond drawdown is pretty much kind of self-explanatory. It's where you lower the water level in the pond and expose some of the bottom. Typically, you do this in the late fall or winter. And there's several reasons to do a drawdown. One is it's a good way to help control aquatic plants, particularly plants that are around the shoreline area. The goal is to draw the water off those plants and expose those to freezing temperatures during the wintertime. It's also a drawdown can be used as a fish management technique. We typically recommend that if someone has a pond that is overpopulated with small brim, and the reason we do this is it pulls those brim, kind of concentrates the fish in a smaller area and allows the bass to eat some of those brim. And then it's also a useful technique or thing to do if you need to perform any maintenance activities on your fishing piers, or maybe you have a boat ramp in your pond. Like I say, it allows you to do maintenance activities.
Let's see, fish attractors. A lot of people like to go throw trees in a pond, Christmas trees, all kind of stuff. Whatever we got, throw it in the pond, throw it in the lake. Here we go.
Yes, and we're guilty of that doing that on our state fishing lakes. Fish attractors are great because they'll concentrate both your brim and your bass. It provides habitat for those fish species, and as well, really what I'm interested in as a pond owner, though, is that it's going to concentrate fish and make it easier for me to catch some. You talked about using Christmas trees. Christmas trees provide good cover, but unfortunately they don't last very long. Mm-hmm. And so we recommend, if you're going to go use trees, to go with a hardwood tree, maybe a blackjack oak or a post oak. Cedar trees also are great. They last a long time. Of course, you also can go the artificial route, PVC pipe, and get pretty creative making your own fish attractor with PVC pipe and different kinds of tubing that's available. And also another type of fish attractor that we don't always think of it as a fish attractor, but a pea gravel. And we talked about this in the first show. I think we did part 1.
That's what the brim bed on, isn't it?
Exactly. And during the spawn, those are obviously great fish attractors because the brim are going to be on those pea gravel beds spawning.
I talked to a friend of mine who had put some pea gravel out his new house on the water, and they're catching brim this weekend with the full moon on it.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
It's amazing how they know that the rocks are there, or the fish attractors there, how they find it, how they hang out around it, and just
Why do they do that?
how do they know? I mean, does somebody send out like a memo across the fish world, like, "Hey, there's some new rocks down"? I mean, it's
Big
amazing.
neon sign.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, animals the same way. I mean, you put stuff out, and it's innate that they can find. It's crazy to me. So, why do they get on those little rocks like that, Bull?
Well, they utilize that because they're going to fan out a bed, a kind of depression in that gravel, and they're not worried if it's too silty and if it was too muddy of a bottom, that could impact the eggs, the viability of the eggs.
Gotcha.
So obviously that pea gravel is a real clean surface, and they can form that depression, and it's going to stay there, stay in that shape, and lay their eggs in that, and they don't have to worry about silt or anything coming in and destroying those eggs.
Get you some crickets this weekend, man.
When them brim start bedding like that, you can smell them. Why is that?
Right.
Why is that?
That's just the fish are also concentrated right there. That's what you're smelling.
Is it really? I mean, you ever done that? You ever done that,
yeah.
Butler? You go out there,
Old full moon.
you
in
smell
May.
them brim, man.
Butler's told me he can smell turkeys when he's walking through the woods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and man, when they're like that, you can catch the mess out of them.
Yes, you can.
And so
And it's fun, too.
It's about that time, right about now, isn't it,
It
Larry?
sure is.
Full
It sure
moon, baby.
is. It sure is.
Get you a good
May
mess
is-
for Memorial Day, huh?
This may very well be the first spawn of the year, or the
No
first
pun
big
intended,
spawn.
right?
Hey, I'll tell y'all something too, and we don't do enough of this, but you can take those brims just like you would when you're getting ready to fry them. You know, gut them and head them and slit them, scale them and gut them and head them, and then put the little slits in them. Instead of frying them, take them and put olive oil all over them and rub them on the inside and out and season them up with Greek seasoning and put them on the grill and broil them. It's pretty good. Something different. It's something different, and it's pretty good for you too, Reed.
Yep.
I know you over there, Mr. Nutrition.
Well, trying to be like Adam Butler.
Try you a broiled brim one day on the grill, especially if you got a gas grill that you can cut it down low and broil them like there. You could do it on a low charcoal grill. They're pretty special, believe it or not. They taste pretty good, and just something different. Put them up, put a bunch of Greek seasoning or something on them, or just salt and pepper. But got to put the olive oil on them so they don't get all yucky or nothing. But broil them away, man. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. All right, I got a couple more questions for you. I want to talk about how to clear up a pond if it had some muddy water. We'll talk about that. We've got that. We're going to hit the break here, so I'll go ahead and kind of let you get started on that, Larry. But how do you clear a lake up with muddy water?
That's one of the toughest things that we get asked and come up with a great answer. I mean, it can be a difficult problem, but you kind of want to try to determine why your pond is muddy. Look in the watershed. Are you having some issues, with muddy water being washed into the pond, or do you have shallow areas in the pond? And when I say shallow, less than 3 feet, 1 to 2 feet, where wave action is stirring up the bottom and keeping it muddy. Some people say that if you have a lot of catfish in your pond, you may have a muddy water problem. It can be kind of difficult to clear. So you want to try to identify why you've got a muddy pond first. The simplest way to clear it up is using bales of hay. It's also the least expensive way to do it. You can take 2 or 3 bales of hay and stake those bales in shallow water, and as they decompose, it'll help clear up the water. There are some chemicals that can be used, but they can be dangerous, and it can lead to fish kills. So,
A bale of hay.
yes.
Speaking of fish kill, I want to talk about that when we come back as we continue with Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Pond management again here today with Larry Bull, and he's Assistant Director of Fisheries Bureau, and got a lot of knowledge here with us today about how to keep your pond the way you need it to be. Mike from Boonville said there's a green like film on my lake. Seems to move with the wind. Is that normal or harmful? Probably some type of algae, I'd guess.
Well,
huh?
it could be algae. It could be, I'm thinking also there's a floating plant called duckweed, another thing called cornmeal, watermeal. It feels like cornmeal in your hand, which are very small plants that can be blown around in the wind, or it could be algae too at the surface and moving around with the wind.
You might want to get somebody with the department come check it out for you, or either a pond management dude, whoever that might be. All right, let's finish up here today, Larry. What should you do if you start seeing dead fish? You got a problem, don't you?
Well, you do, and you typically we have, this is a pretty common call that we get, and you kind of have two different scenarios, JT. One case is where you have a mass die-off maybe in a day or two, a really quick kill, and that typically is all the fish, all different fish species, and typically the larger fish and even their smaller fish. But that most likely is a dissolved oxygen kill. We typically see those in August and September. The other possibility might be a poison, but that's a pretty rare case. And that happens. Usually it's a dissolved oxygen kill when we see a big die-off like that. We also get calls from people who see a few fish every day. I'm seeing 5 or 10 bluegill die or catfish or whatever it might be, and they'll see those more fish die over an extended period of time, and that's typically more than likely some kind of disease problem. Really not a whole lot you can do about that. There are some medicated feeds that have antibiotics in them, but typically you're not going to really treat the whole pond, and typically you're not going to lose all your fish from a disease problem. You're just going to kind of cull the weaker individuals out. So usually that's not a real big problem.
And you can get the turnover too when it gets really, 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 really hot.
That's correct, and that's what we're talking about with the low dissolved oxygen. Yeah. That's typically what happened in August and September. If you get particularly after a really heavy thunderstorm event.
What can you do? Is there anything you can do to stop them?
Well, once it starts, it's too late. The only preventive maintenance you could do would have some kind of aeration system in the pond and just keep it well aerated and well circulated.
Is it good to go ahead and install like a pump or something, some type of little fountain type thing if you can, to keep a pond? Is that going to do enough?
Well, I think no. I mean, if it's a bigger pond and you just have one fountain, you're probably not going to do a whole lot of good. Really, a way to avoid the problem would be to build it correctly in the first place. We talked about the first show where you don't need a pond much more than 12 feet deep would be the deepest area. So people that build a pond 15, 20 feet deep, they're more likely to have this turnover problem occur because of the depth of their pond.
Well, it's something to think about that you need to pay attention to when you go to making that pond. So there you go.
Right.
All right. Well, it's been a lot. We've learned a lot, Adam.
I sure have.
Mm-hmm. You ready to build a pond, aren't you?
If I had a little land to do it on, JT, I think I'm ready.
All right, Mr. Major Reed, one more out there to all the people that's going to be on the water this weekend.
Yeah, be safe. Make sure you got all your safety equipment. Just don't act like you got some sense.
Right. If
solves a lot of those issues.
Solves the majority, 9 out of 10 of them. It's going to solve that problem.
Yeah. Most of the times the stuff that you think is cool, it's not in the long run.
And that's not just here. It's also if you plan on going to the coast, our friends down there at the Department of Marine Resources will be just as
a busy weekend.
Just as jacked up on Mountain Dew as you guys will be.
Watch out. Yeah.
Right.
Watch out for the other guy or person.
That's the key because we don't want to have to send a dive team out. Nobody wants to see that. That's especially when you want to have fun. It's Memorial Day weekend, and that's the last thing we want to hear about coming in here on a Monday or the next Monday after Memorial Day. We'll have a best of Mississippi Outdoors Radio for you next Monday because we're all going to be hanging out by a swimming pool, cooking on a grill.
Well, you've beat around the bush in the commercial breaks all this hour. What are you putting on the smoker, JT?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
We know it's going to be something, and it'll be good.
I hadn't thought about it, to be honest with you. I'm sure my neighbor, I have a smoker I keep over at my neighbor's house because he's got a nice little big patio right there, and it's just big bulky thing. he enjoys letting it stay there. It's kind of
He probably gets a little
mutual agreement.
Little side benefit out of that,
It's a mutual agreement that we have, And
when the smoker goes into use, he gets an invite over. Huh?
Well, it's at his house. He uses it too. He's got rights to it too. It's sort of like picking on the halves in a garden. You know how that works. So I imagine at some point over the weekend there'll be some type of hog meat that'll be put on that smoker before it's all said and done, if I had to guess. Y'all have a great Memorial Day. Let's kick off and have a great summer. Please be safe out there, everybody, especially on the water. And I hope you have a great Memorial Day week and weekend. And I'll see you guys 2 weeks from today, all right? All right, there you go. Mississippi Outdoors Radio is always brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Gallery Wine coming up next.